Ya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we will start our first lesson in civic education class. Before we start, I want to introduce myself. My name is Harsha Permata. I was graduated from Gajah Mada University from postgraduate program of Faculty of Philosophy in 2013, and I also have chance to study in England for 1.5 years in University of Bath. I study political and international studies. Okay, about this class of civic education, there are several learning strategies. First is lecturing. I will explain several concepts in civic education. And second is discussion. The student will discuss several topics that are related to civic education, and then after that you have to present your discussion result in the class, and the other groups will have to make an opinion about the presentation. The third is audiovisual. We will learn civic education by watching movies and videos that are related to civic education. About the assessment, there are several components. First is assignment. I will give 30%. Second is mid-semester exam. I will give 30%. And third is final semester exam. It's around 40%. So if you sum all the components, you will get 100% grades. However, you don't have to get 100 in order to get grade A. The minimum for grade A is 80. Below 80 or 70 to 79 is B. Below that is C, D, and E. Okay, you can see by yourself in slide number 3. Okay, we continue learning schedules. There are 7 weeks before the mid-semester exam, and in the first meeting, or this meeting, today's meeting, we will discuss about class introduction and introduction to civic education. The next meeting, or next week, we will discuss about national identity. The third meeting, we will discuss about state and constitution, and the fourth meeting also the same. We also discuss about the state and constitution. The fifth and the sixth meeting, we will discuss about the citizen rights and obligations. And the last meeting before the mid-semester exam, we will discuss about democracy in Indonesia. And for the class rules, first we have to be honest. You cannot cheat in the exam. You cannot copy the answer of your friend in the mid-semester or final semester exam. And second is obey the academic rules and dress code. You have to wear an appropriate clothing. Third is you have to attend all the classes. But however, if you cannot attend 1 or 2 classes, 1 or 2 meetings, you have to provide a letter of statement from doctors or your parents that explain about your condition. Fourth is students have to fill online attendance. If you not able to fill it, you can make a list in the WhatsApp messenger group, and then I will help you to fill the online attendance. Okay, we will continue about introduction to civic education. First is the definition. Civic education is derived from the words civis. It's a Latin word. And in English, we also adopt the civis into civic. And civic education also called civics with S. But if you use civic education, you cannot add S after C. So it's only CIVIC and space education. Okay, civic education was originally introduced in the United States of America in 1790 after the independence of United States of America. The aim for this introduction is to grow the spirit of nationalism in America, because American nations consist of multiple races and ethnicities. So they want to unite the multiple ethnies and races into one nation, and they use civic education as the tools to grow the spirit of nationalism. Civic education also is the part of political science, because in civic education we discuss several issues regarding to political system, government or state policies, and the citizen rights and obligations. That is why civic education also part of political science. Okay, as I said before, there is a terminological difference between US and UK. In US they call civic education, in UK they call it citizenship education. However, it also can be called as democracy education. Why? Because in civic education we also grow, we also enhance, we also encourage the democratic spirit of the citizen and student. What is the democratic spirit? Democratic spirit means the citizen can actively participating under democratic government. So you can actively give your expression through writing in several medias, or make a political campaign, or vote in election. So in civic education, we are willing to grow the student competencies. So after that, the student can become the citizen that able to actively participate in the democratic government. Okay, we continue. Next is about the relation between civic education and Pancasila in Indonesia. The relation is Pancasila is the state philosophy and the foundation of Republic of Indonesia. Pancasila is also the guidance of Indonesian nation. That is why in Indonesia, civic education have to be based on Pancasila. So if we discuss civic education, we also discuss about Pancasila. What is Pancasila? Pancasila derived from Sanskrit words. Panca means five and Sila means principle. Pancasila is 5 moral principles. First principle is ketuhanan yang Maha Esa, or belief in the one and only God. Second principle is kemanusiaan yang adil dan beradab, or just and civilized humanity. Third principle is persatuan Indonesia, or the unity of Indonesia. Fourth principle is kerakyatan yang dipimpin oleh hikmat kebijaksanaan dalam permusyawaratan perwakilan, or demokrasi led by the wisdom of deliberations among representatives. Fifth principle is keadilan sosial bagi seluruh rakyat Indonesia, or social justice for the whole of the people of Indonesia. So it's 5 moral principles. The history of Pancasila. What is the history of Pancasila? Pancasila also Pancasila was proposed. The terms of Pancasila was proposed by Soekarno or Bung Karno in the meeting of BPUPKI or Badan Penyelidik Usaha Persiapan Kemerdekaan Indonesia or Investigating Committee for Preparatory Work for Indonesian Independence in 1 June 1945. He proposed Pancasila as the name of Indonesian state ideology. Because of that, 1 June 1945 also is the birthday of Pancasila. BPUPKI was formed by Japanese military government. They are willing to give Indonesian nation an independence. They need more troops, more allies. They need a large troop in order to win the Second World War. At that time, the Japanese almost lost. Their alliance, their alliance with German and Italy, they lost the battle in Second World War. So they need large troops. That is why they are willing to give an independence to Indonesia. They want Indonesian to be their allies. However, Indonesian founding father rejected. They don't want to take side in the Second World War. They just want to get independence for Indonesian nation. Okay, we'll continue about the history of Pancasila in BPUPKI. There are several members in BPUPKI that deliver a speech about Indonesian state ideology. First is Mr. Muhammad Yamin. He is the law expert that have studied in Netherlands, and he returned to Indonesia. He returned to Hindia Belanda. He wants to create a best country for Indonesian nation. Same as Supomo, he is also a law expert that studied in Netherlands. But the difference is Supomo reject the idea of liberalism and Marxism. He proposed the integralistic theory of the state. So the state with one law, one government, and one ideology only. Muhammad Yamin proposed 5 principles, which are perikebangsaan or nationalism, and the second is perikemanusiaan or humanity, third is periketuhanan or divinity, fourth is perikerakyatan or demokrasi, and the last one is kesejahteraan rakyat or social welfare. Supomo also proposed 5 principles. First is persatuan or unity, second is kinship or kekeluargaan, third is agreement and democracy or mufakat and demokrasi, fourth is a discussion or musyawarah, fifth is keadilan sosial or social justice, and the last member of BPUPKI that delivered a speech in 1 June 1945 is Bung Karno or Soekarno. He proposed Pancasila as the name of Indonesian state ideology, according to the suggestion from his friend, the linguist expert. He also proposed 5 principles. First is kebangsaan or nationalism, second is kemanusiaan or internationalism, third is musyawarah mufakat or discussion, agreement and representation, fourth is kesejahteraan sosial or social welfare, Fifth is ketuhanan yang berkebudayaan or divinity culture. He also proposed that these 5 principles can be shortened to 3 principles, which called 3 sila, which are socio-nationalism, socio-democracy, and divinity. And he also proposed these 3 principles can be shortened to 1 principle that called ekasila, or gotong royong, or mutual assistance. Okay, this is the picture of Soekarno that deliver a speech about Pancasila. After 1 June, the Committee of 8 was formed to investigate every proposal of Indonesian state principle. At the time, there are 2 different opinions in regard to Indonesian state principle. The first faction willing, they want the state that based on Islamic law. But the nationalist faction rejected. They want a secular state. They don't want the state that based on religious law. After that, the Committee of 9 was formed, and they held a meeting at 22nd of June 1945. The result of this meeting is the embryo of Indonesian Preamble or Jakarta Charter. In Jakarta Charter, in paragraph 4, there is also the formulation of Pancasila. However, the difference is there is the obligation. There is 7 words that differentiate the first principle in Piagam Jakarta and the first principle of Pancasila that we use in Indonesian country right now. The difference is there is the obligation to perform Islamic law for Islamic followers, but in the final formulation of Pancasila that we use as the foundation of Indonesian country right now, they erase the obligation to perform Islamic law for Islamic followers. They change it into belief in the one and only God, or ketuhanan yang Maha Esa. The second, third, fourth, and fifth principle are almost the same. And there are several debates in regard to the change from divinity with the obligation to perform Islamic law for Islamic followers into ketuhanan yang Maha Esa or belief in the one and only God. There are several opinions about that change. However, the change, that change also is the manifestation of Indonesian model of democracy, because Indonesian nations consist of multiple ethnicities, religions, and tribes and languages. So Indonesian ideology have to represent the plurality of Indonesia. If they still put Islamic law as the first principle, the unity of Indonesia will not continue until now. So the unity of Indonesia will break if they decided to keep Islamic law. That is why Muhammad Hatta or Bung Hatta changed the words Islamic law into belief in the one and only God or ketuhanan yang Maha Esa. I think that's all for today. Thank you for your kind attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.